Hello everyone, Corvus here, working on this infinity miniature. I'm about to start painting this visor thing here. I'm going to paint it in a gem-like effect, so I thought it would be interesting to show you guys how I do this. The colors I had in mind for it, as you can see, that there's quite some yellowish tones on there, and then some orange also. The orange is Amarantha Red by Vallejo Model Color. I think I'm going to make a 50-50 mix of Amarantha Red and flat yellow to create a bright orange, which we will use as the base color for the visor. So first let's create the mix. And creating a 50-50 mix is not exact science, just try to have the pools the same size, so the orange pool looks a bit larger, but that's simply because the orange is a bit more fluid, so it spreads out a bit more. And yeah, maybe the one you've seen in my previous video, the dropper bottle with distilled water in it. Just going to make a separate pool here. Use my mixing brush, just draw some distilled water from there. So this gives us a nice bright orange. And now I'm going to use the mix that's on my mixing brush to create a separate pool here. Add a bit more. I'm going to make a third pool here. I'm going to use these two pools to create a shade. To base coat this pool, I'm going to add quite a bit of black to base coat the visor. And then this is just a separate pool. I'm probably going to add a bit of black in here as well to have a darker tone, but then start adding from this big pool to highlight, and then we'll add more yellow and white, I guess, to create a full highlight. Some bit here. The mixing brush. No need to clean to rinse this one every time. To add a bit of black. A bit more. So I'm looking for almost black here for the base coat. Add a bit of, not that's too much, a bit of water here. That's quite dark, okay, that's what I want. Move this aside. Now I'm going to base coat the entire surface of the visor with this black. This almost black, so that's our base coat. You'll notice that I've already painted the areas next to the visor, so we'll have to be extra careful when base coating the visor. So having only a bit of paint on your brush really helps to give more control. I'm going to add a bit more here because I see that the coverage isn't that great. That looks good enough. I'm going to use this pool. I'm just going to draw a bit here and then add some of this. Now drawing some orange from this pool to that. Now you already see why I used 3 pools of paint. That's because some of the black is now in this pool. So that's not something you want to have in your base mix. You only get one try at making this right. If you have to make another mix, then yeah, the 50-50 is not going to be exactly right every time. I'm just going to draw a bit more from the 2 pools to have a bit more of this tone. I think it should be a bit darker and a bit tint more. Okay, just test it here and test it on a fingernail. To check the transparency is quite transparent, maybe a bit too much, so add some of this orange. Now it's a bit brighter, but that's okay because we'll probably still have quite some transparency on here. Yeah, okay. It's going to be just right, I think. So we're going to paint this up like with a gem effect, basically, which means that I'm going to highlight this to the bottom, towards the bottom. So now I'm making sure that's only the tip of my brush is loaded with the paint, and then carefully paint. Yeah, I think 3/4 of the visor towards the bottom. Move the brush from the top to the bottom, like this. I'm going to use this. I'm going to do this a second time because the mix is quite transparent. I'm just adding a second layer. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's already a very slight highlight building up. Very small highlight. Yeah, it's basically highlighting by adding more orange. I'm going to draw quite a lot of this pool, adding it here. Tiny tip of water. Again, carefully loading the brush. I have the bad habit to paint on my thumb. That's just because I want to get rid of the excess paint on the brush. So very light mix. I think it's 1 part water, 1 part paint now. And then carefully, about half of the visor I'm painting right now. Again, dragging the paint from the top to the bottom. Doing the same on the other side. I think this is already visible on camera. Again, the palette. I think we're now close to using pure base coat to paint on another highlight. Just going to add some of this. I'm going to clean the mixing brush a bit, and then going to add some of this water to this, so it will add a slight tone of the darker color to this. So not the pure color yet. Clean up my brush a bit. Check on the fingernail. It's quite light, so I'm just going to add some of this pool. Just makes it a bit lighter and a bit brighter color, and make the mix a bit denser. So that should be right. Now carefully I think this is about a third of the visor I'm painting now with this mix. And just noticed some paint running into the crevice between the visor and this mouthpiece. I'll have to see what how this ends up. Might need to fix that when we're done. Having the same issue here, so because the paint is so thin, it's running in the crevice. Not really a problem. I have to see how it looks when the visor is finished. It's quite easy to fix. So this highlight is building up quite nicely. I'm going to take some of this mix, put it here. I'm going to make it a slight bit brighter, just by adding some white. A tiny bit. Make a fresh pool of dilute distilled water here. So this is now a bit lighter than the base coat. I'm going to make it a bit more lighter by adding more white. Okay. Now I'm going to try to paint really a small line of this bright orange towards the bottom of the visor. Now I'm going to do the mix for the final highlight, the bottom of the visor. I'm just adding some more white here, a bit of water. Might be a bit too thin, so I'm taking the base coat again, more white to make it a bit thicker again. That's bright enough. And now only a tiny dot of this bright mix. And that looks kind of smooth, but we're not here yet. Still have the pure white, my palette. Just going to thin this tiny bit to make it easier to work, and then I'm going to paint a tiny dot on the top left of the visor. So the white paint has a tendency to dry quickly, so I'm creating a small point on my brush. There we go. So this side of the visor looks a bit odd with the white spot only on one side, so I'm going to at the white spot there as well. Tiny one. Now if you take a look to the miniature from the front, it might look odd with the two highlights, but if you look at from this angle or this one, I think it looks good. So as you can see, there's now some of the lighter highlights which has gone in the crevice between the visor and the mask. I'm going to fix this, but apart from that, maybe this highlight, this white spot could have been a bit smaller, so I think I'm going to fix that. Still having the darker mixes on my palette, so I'm going to fix that as well. I'm going to show you a picture of the finished visor after I fixed those mistakes. That's maybe a small bit of advice I want to give you, final advice. Always take the time to go back and fix your mistakes. Hope you like this little tutorial. So yeah, by any means, post a comment, press the like button, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching.